Hi everyone, hope you can hear me okay. I'm Emily from the Communications and Engagement team here at Council. Thank you for coming along to our first Local Water Done Well webinar. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get into it. After our speakers today, we will have a Q&A session. So please feel free to submit any questions at any time during the webinar by using the Q&A button that should be at the bottom of your screens. If we don't get to your question today, we'll make sure to add it to the FAQs that are available at mpdc.nz/let's talk. Also, just to let you know, we are recording the session today so that we can make it available to people who couldn't join us. Okay, that is it from me. So I will pass you over to Mayor Adrienne.
Alrighty, thanks, Emily. Thank you, everyone who's perhaps joining us online to learn a bit more about what's happening in our water space. Our water service delivery is coming under some challenges, and it's clear there is a need to look to do things differently. The Local Waters Done Well initiative is considered, and we have to do a water services delivery plan, and that lays out our 10-year plan of how we are going to deliver water to our community, our water services to our community. This plan actually highlights the headwinds ahead of us in the medium and long term under our current model. So you will have noticed, those of you that receive the water services in our communities, that the cost to deliver these services has increased significantly in the last few years. And overall, the sustainability of these essential services under the current model are very much front of mind. There's over $10 billion worth of infrastructure budgeted across the Waikato councils alone in the 2024-2034 long-term plan. And there's a challenge there about how we will deliver these upgrades in this time frame. Council is facing a legacy decision. This will ensure we deliver compliant services to our communities in the long term. And the key here is that we will continue to deliver water to your houses, so you can turn the tap on, you can flush the toilet, and it'll all be compliant. At the same time, we also have to remember it's got to be affordable, and this is another part of the puzzle that we are working through. So we have two options that we have in front of us. We have the individual business unit and our preferred option, the multi-owned, multi-council-owned, council-controlled organisation. So I've kept it fairly brief. I'll hand you over to Manaia, our CEO, to talk about the consultation we're currently undertaking. Thanks, Manaia.
Thanks, Mayor Adrienne. So I'm just going to share some slides with you, not a lot of slides, to expand on some of the points that Mayor Adrienne has made. The first point I want to make is the information I'm going to share in these slides is all from our website, from our consultation document. The website that Emily read out, and it's right there on that slide, mpdc.nz/let's talk. And just noting again that submissions close on the 25th of May. I'm primarily going to focus on water and wastewater. I will mention stormwater briefly. Essentially, this is about changes that we are proposing in the way that we manage our water and wastewater services for our community. I'm going to talk a little bit about why there is a change. The Mayor's already mentioned that we're looking at two options and we have a preference, and I'll expand a little bit as to why we have a preference for that one. I'll briefly talk about the key differences between the two options. I'm going to show a little bit of financial information, not a lot, and then I'm going to talk about the process from here, and where we are now and where we'll be going to next in terms of this whole review. So why the need to change? Legislation has been introduced that requires us to produce water service delivery plans by the 3rd of September. And in that legislation, it requires us to look at the very least at 2 options, which we're doing right now. But even if we didn't have that legislation, there's certain pressures on us at the moment that we are facing anyway. There are new regulations. We have got 3 regulators looking at us now in this area. That's the Waikato Regional Council, we've had for a long time, water regulator, and a new regulator, the Commerce Commission. We are getting new standards prescribed for us, and importantly, the expectations of those regulators are being translated into things that we need to do to manage our assets differently and deliver our services differently. Our infrastructure is like many parts of the country, is aging and it needs to be replaced. And we're under the pressure of population growth, which is a positive thing. But we also have rising costs. The costs associated with water and wastewater services are rising disproportionately to other areas. Local government has got limited funding options available to our council. But we believe we can look at another option that could give another way that all of this work can be funded. We can do all that's necessary and make it more affordable for our community. Again, not unique to local government or to the water and wastewater area, but there are workforce challenges. The demographic of the people involved in water and wastewater, and we've got great people involved in that area. The demographic is the same as what it is for New Zealand. We've got a big bulge of people in the older age bracket, and we don't have the people coming through to replace them at the level that we need to. And then, as the Mayor alluded to, there's a massive works program in our Waikato region over the next 10 years, just for the waters and wastewater space, let alone for other areas of our business and indeed the private sector. So the contractors that we're looking to engage in our work are the same contractors that everybody else is looking to engage. And that presents real challenges for us to actually get the work done whilst trying to satisfy our regulators. Our preferred option, I'm going to talk about a little bit. There's quite a bit of information on here that enables me just to illustrate what our preferred option, which is to combine with a number of other councils to set up what we call a council-controlled organisation, jointly owned by the councils. The councils involved that we're talking to are Hauraki, Otarahanga District, South Waikato, Taupo District, Waipa, and Waitomo. Now, in this particular graphic here, we've got all the councils, and right down the bottom, you've got the water services, what we call CCA, Council Controlled Organisation, or CCO. In between here, between those 2 levels, are what the council would use to hold the water services entity to account to deliver the service that we need to deliver to our community. There are examples of this kind of entity in New Zealand already. For the waters area, people might have heard of Watercare, which provides services in the Auckland area. But in fact, we as Matamata-Piako also have members of a CCO with a number of other councils. We are part owners of the Hamilton Airport, and along with Hamilton City Council, Waikato District, Waipa District, and Otarahanga District. So a CCO is not new to us. We've been involved in one in the past, but we're looking at one of those structures to potentially meet the challenges that we face in the waters area. In our view, in Council's view, a CCO offers a more affordable option in the long term to deliver the services that we need to deliver. That by aggregating a number of councils together, we'll have the ability to have economies of scale, get better efficiency. We believe it'll allow us to better meet the legal requirements of our regulators, and we also believe that we'll have more weight when we talk to our regulators about what they're requiring of us. There's certainly going to be significantly more borrowing capacity available to a water entity that has been aggregated in the way that we're talking about than what council would have on its own. And with all of that efficiency and hopefully lower costs, we believe we'll be better positioned or the CCO will be better positioned to take on some of the climate challenges that we face in the water and wastewater space. We also think that it will offer an option that will be more attractive for our qualified staff to be involved in and to have career pathways, and also to develop people from the community to work in the CCO. The other advantages that we see by making this decision ourselves at this point is that if we go into an entity like this now as an anchor council, we can have the most influence about how that's set up and how we ensure that our community interests are best represented. A small but final, but not a small point, is that we can take a catchment-based approach to how we deal with some of our challenges. So if you take, for example, the Waiho River, there are 4 territorial councils that are interested or have discharge to that particular river, and we all look after or are responsible for our particular areas and making sure that's okay. And in fact, it makes more sense that that's looked at as a complete river, and that all of the councils, all of the areas that may impact on that river, that we work together to try and achieve good environmental outcomes. So the other option that we have to have legally is what we call an internal business unit, which is what we have now in a particular form. It has to be an option that we put forward. If a CCO didn't go ahead, this is what we'd be looking at very hard. We are looking at now. We would have to change our structure. We'd have to employ additional people, and we'd be facing exactly the same challenges that I described earlier. So in relative terms, we think that an aggregated model, a CCO might be better placed, or is better placed, to deal with those challenges. I would have to say, and we note in our documentation, we have a lot of experience in working with and managing water and wastewater now. The world is changing for us in this area. The regulations are changing, and that is an unknown for us at this point. I'm going to talk briefly about the options. In fact, I'm going to talk about the CCO primarily as the main differences with the CCO and the things that stay the same. So if we look at the assets, the pipes and the treatment plants for both the water and the wastewater, they stay. They still provide the services that they provide now to our communities. However, those assets under a CCO model would be owned by the CCO, and the CCO would actually use that value of those assets to actually borrow against to get the work completed. Council would still maintain its interest and ownership as a shareholder to the CCO with other councils. If people have a problem with their water or wastewater services as they do now they call the council. In the future, they would call the CCO. This is an example of where the council would be working very hard to ensure that there is no lesser service provided to our community, because we would be expecting that if a CCO is set up, it would provide at least the service that we provide, and preferably better, and we can do it. In terms of decision making, at the moment, of course, council makes all the decisions relative to the water and wastewater services within a regulatory framework. Going forward, there would be a board appointed to a CCO to make the decisions on managing the water. However, that board would be informed by what we call a statement of expectations that all the shareholder councils would create, and to ensure that the board does what the councils want collectively. What would happen to costs? Well, in either option, there's no question that the costs to deliver the services in these areas are increasing. In the case of the CCO, from the financial modelling we've done, and I'll share some information from it, we believe that in every case, the CCO will provide a more affordable option for our community than if we were to stay on our own. In terms of what or how you might be getting charged, at the moment you receive a bill, it's included on your rates bill for water and wastewater. Going forward, a CCO would eventually issue its own bills to the same people for those services. very briefly going to show you this chart. It's all included on our website, just to illustrate over time what we believe will be the benefits from a cost perspective of a CCO over our own internal business unit. Remembering that what we think is the main, well, what we know is the main driver for these differences is the efficiency that's gained from an aggregated model, Waikato Water Limited, versus us doing the work on our own. Where are we at? Well, the process has been going on for some time, with legislation introduced in September 2024, and Council making certain considerations and decisions since that time. We're now at the point where we're consulting with our community, and submissions close on the 25th of May, and we will be making a decision on this by the 30th of June. We have to submit our water service delivery plans to the government by the 3rd of September, and the government will review those, scrutinise those to see that they meet the requirements that they have. Whatever the option that comes out from that whole process, from September through to June, we'll be putting in place what we need to try and implement our water services delivery plan. And so post 1 July 26 is when we'll be seeing changes to either a modification of our internal services, if it's a business unit, or setting up a CCO to deliver services in that way. And that's the end of my presentation, Emily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll pop you both on the screen here. So we will head into the Q&A section. So if you haven't already, please feel free to pop any questions you have into the Q&A box. You can do that by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. These can be done anonymously if you'd like. Cool, so we're going to kick off with this question. Will our council be subsidising the delivery of water services for another community or council in the Waikato?
Great question. So we're all coming together at a different level of what works we've done, what works are planned, and we haven't got water meters. Most of the other councils have got water meters, so there's a clear difference to start with. So what we call that as subsidisation is another word is harmonisation. So we won't be cross-subsidising in the early years. I think once we're all on a level playing field, then might be an opportunity to harmonise. But in answer to your question, no, we will continue to pay, our ratepayers will continue to pay the costs of their water services.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess a follow on from that one, we have, why have you chosen these councils to partner with, especially with Waipa being in the news in past months due to the high cost it will be for their water infrastructure upgrades?
Another great question. So as the Waikato region, we come together as mayors in a mayoral forum. So this conversation has been had across all our councils in the Waikato region, and we all have slightly different debt structures. Cambridge have actually done a significant investment in their wastewater plant for Cambridge. So that has lifted their borrowing significantly in recent times. So they're hitting that headroom. We are also facing a similar scenario in a few years' time because we're now doing Matamata's wastewater plant, and that is pushing our headroom in the coming years. As I said earlier, it's not, this gives us, by shifting the waters out of our books, that releases the headroom for councils to do other things. One of the examples Manaia's actually explained to us is for Matamata-Piako. We will be hitting close to our debt room. We've got some aging swimming pools in our community that are going to require some borrowing. And that's where we will get challenged. And that's what Waipa is currently facing, is that extra cost of doing the other things as well. So by shifting our waters out, that gives us that capacity to invest in our communities very carefully and prudently, of course. Can that answer that any better? Manaia, is there anything you can add to that?
It's not, no, I think you've answered it very well, Mayor Adrienne. I guess the only reflection I would have is that we've got seven councils of a similar composition, like a rural urban mix, not one large urban entity in there at the moment, and we're working very, very well together, and that bringing councils together, everybody's interested in making sure that their communities don't there's nothing detrimental for those communities, that everybody is a winner. And I think all of the mayors and the councils of the entities that we're talking to, the council we're talking to, they all have the same view that nobody is to be worse off in this process. So there's a culture in that discussion, I think, that's been developing, and that's really invaluable. It's different than if you're being forced into a process, I guess, is the observation I'd make. That this is the council's making the decision to shape the future with people who they want to work with at this point.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. All right, our next question that has come in is, at what time are MPDC proposing to join the CCO? Understanding you need to operate under the Water Service Delivery Plan from 1 July 2026, would MPDC transfer all water and wastewater services on 1 July 2026?
Hand back to Manaia.
Thank you, Adrienne. If the decision is to go with a CCO, we've effectively got from 1 July 2025 to 30th of June 2026 to set up a CCO. That's not a lot of time. That is a lot of work. What we would be doing, firstly, what we would ensure is that there is no disruption to service for any of our consumers, our community. That'd be paramount. So that means people can still turn the taps, wash the toilets, things will still get fixed, projects will still continue as we've already planned. Secondly, that our staff, and equally importantly, that our staff have the opportunity to work through the process and are looked after, because we want to retain them all. So a lot of work to be done, and what we would need to develop is a detailed transition plan. There would be a desire for some councils, I'm sure, to be operating fully on 1 July. We will do whatever is best for our community and our ratepayers. If that is 1 July, then it would be 1 July. But if it's not, if we feel there's some risk to the way things are being delivered, then we would choose a later date. But the point that's being brought out of the question is there's a lot of work to be done between 1 July 25 and 30th of June 26, and we acknowledge that.
Thanks so much. All right, the next one that has come in is, where would the CCO be based?
That one's yet to be defined. Probably as central as possible to our several councils. So I guess if you consider Waitomo, Otorohanga, Taupo, South Waikato and us and Hauraki, Waipa tends to be the middle point. So yet to be decided, but that's a high level discussion that we've had at this point. But in saying that, just because it's based in one district doesn't mean that there isn't a presence across our councils in the operation of this entity if it was to go ahead. You know, we've still got to have people on the ground doing the work. So there will still be local input, local influence, local operations.
Awesome, thank you. The next one that's come in is, CCO is the preferred option, but are there any trade-offs with taking that option?
Good question. Potentially, Manaia, or what's your thoughts?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. In fact, it was a question that one of our councillors asked in the council meeting when we made the decision to go out to consultation with the preferred option. What are the trade-offs? From the discussions we've had with our community, the business community, we had last month at our BA5 meetings, there were two key questions raised by those audiences. One is about who owns the asset, and the second one was about control. Now, hopefully I've covered off about ownership. The assets will pass over to the CCO if we go to a CCO, but council will be a shareholder. So we will still own the entity. In terms of control, yes, it's absolutely true that we won't have a direct control in the way that we would now. With a CCO, there would be a separate board that would be making decisions. That board will be charged with the responsibility to achieve the standards that the regulator requires and that the shareholders require. So there would not be the same direct input by the council. And that's probably the biggest trade-off that our council identified, and that I think some of our partner councils have been thinking about, is that we're losing this. So I guess the other point about control that I'd make, and we made at the council meeting, is with 3 regulators actually looking at us and requiring us to do things the way that they want us to, the actual degree of control and the latitude of making choices actually, it's changing. We are not going to have, even if we stay as an internal business unit, we won't have the same latitude that we used to have. We're finding that now. Our regulators are signalling to us very clearly that they have expectations about how quickly we do things. So asset ownership, which hopefully I've covered off, and control were the 2 biggest trade-offs, I suppose, that have come out of our discussions with the business sector in the district.
Great, thank you. The next one that has come in here is, will there be an opportunity for small private water services, for example, Waiho, will they have an opportunity to join these services?
Mayor Adrienne?
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. I think that's a
Thank you.
good one strategically.
Okay, so what council has as a statutory obligation right now, and there's no proposal that the statutory obligation will change, even if there is a CCO, is we're required to look at the private supplies in our district and assess if there are any issues in regard to the service delivered by those private supplies. Waiho's one, and there's one at Waitor. The CCO is a entity that will deliver services on behalf of the council. So, and this is not unique. We are not unique. Every council probably has private supplies of some degree, or size. So it would be our expectation is that if we identified a problem with a supply like Waiho, that we would be looking to our CCO to actually help provide the solution to that, if that isn't the best solution. Just remembering that the CCO won't have greater powers to do things in the water space than the council has. We are just using the CCO to manage that area. So council still has influence in that respect.
Great, thank you. The next one that we've got in is who would pay to set up the CCO initially, and how much what will those initial costs look like?
You're the numbers man, Manaia.
Thank you, Mayor Adrienne. Look, I'll be quite honest, I can't give you the exact number, but what I can tell you is in our financial modelling that was done for the Waikato CCO, the establishment costs for the CCO are built into the figures. And when we do look at our financial comparisons, they've been included in our comparison because it is a real cost. So now, look, the other reality I have to confess is, while we've put numbers into that plan, we actually don't know that those numbers are right. Those numbers might change. What we have done with our financial modelling is we've put some sensitivity analysis around it to say, well, if we're 5% more or 5% less, et cetera, to try and test the robustness of the model. In every instance, the CCO comes out with a more affordable option than if we were to do it ourselves. Now, we've noted in our consultation document that, in fact, if we decide to stay with an internal business unit, there actually will be some additional costs that we will incur as well. In the short term, if we were to set up a CCO, we would be taking the costs of setting that up and transferring it to the CCO so they can borrow to fund it and recover that cost over time. Whereas any cost that we incur to set up our internal business unit, we have to front up with straight away.
Thank you. On that topic, the next question is, have the financial assumptions and projections for a CCO been independently verified, or are they just a best guess?
Yes, they have been. And of course, we actually had a seminar with Brad Olson yesterday, who's also from Infometrics. He's also looked at our modelling, and there is a clear signal there that is the model. But again, it's for us to go through and understand and bring our community along with us on this journey. I think there'll be something you can add to there, Manaia.
Well, I think what my experience of financial modelling, and I've done it for quite a long time, financial model has assumptions associated with it, and depending on how you change those assumptions, you can get different answers. The robustness of the model has been a key factor for all councils involved. And so we've had independently 7 sets of financial managers who've reviewed the figures, tested them to their satisfaction, as well as the external review that the Mayor has just referred to from Brad Olson. But I have to reinforce that a model is just a model. The critical thing for us is that when we're looking at 2 options, our baseline is the same for both options, so that we can, we're not introducing different factors in one model than the other, so that we're comparing apples with apples, if you like, at the end in terms of the results. So look, hand on heart, the model is as robust as we could make it. But of course, there are still things that we don't know about the future. And so for council, to be fair, and council have been congratulated for taking what the Mayor talked about as a legacy decision. They've had to be brave, knowing that we don't have perfect information around this issue.
And I guess to add to that, and in the modelling you'll see on the through the consultation document, and Manaia did bring up a chart there showing where the costs were heading. In the short term, most of us look sort of okay. We're all, the baseline is the same. It starts to separate out over time, and that's again around achieving those economies of scale, having that buying power, creating those efficiencies that we can do together because we're all providing the same kind of services, and getting contractors. Like when we stand alone, the costs ramp up. For us to get a contractor to come and do something, and he gets there's other councils going up for procurement the same things at the same time. That's where the challenges lie. And if you want the job done, are you prepared to pay more? That's what we come down to in this country, because we are small. We have a limited number of contractors to deliver this infrastructure work. So by working together and smoothing that work, because this is the opportunity that we have, is having that pathway of work to be done. We all know, but under one model, where the works are scheduled. While we sit alone, we don't know what other councils are, where they've scheduled their work. So that opportunity to smooth that work will create a better outcome for the communities, but also affordability is one of the key elements there, and in the long term is showing that.
Great, thank you. The next one that has come in is, with all of these changes that are happening, is the drinking water in our district still safe to drink?
Absolutely. We've actually invested a lot of capital recently in upgrading our water supplies. You've seen the water pipes. It's not just about compliance. It's also about delivering the water to the houses, that we're not losing it in a lot of water leaks. So compliance is definitely a big one. It has ramped up. That's been part of the costs of increases in our targeted rates, is around the testing of our waters to ensure that it is compliant every second of the day, not just tested here for this hour and 12 hours later. This is all part of the compliance process. And you will have heard the stories about boiled water. And we can pride ourselves on delivering a pretty good service. It's when we have a breakdown, or with our freshwater supplies where we have heavy rainfall, and that compromises our filtration units, because when the dirt comes into the water supplies, that makes it really hard for filtration plants to treat that water. So that's when we bring in those conservation notices, so that we can ensure we are delivering compliant water for 24/7.
Welcome, thank you. Next one is if the CCO option, if water and wastewater are moving to CCO control, what happens to stormwater?
So that's been part of our decision that we made the other day around stormwater. For now, it is staying in our books because it's quite a complex piece of work. We've got reserves that are used as for stormwater retention. We've got regional council drains, we've got our local drains. There's quite a bit there to work through. So at this point in time, we are retaining the stormwater in-house with, like all our other councils, but we have allowed the provision for it to move into the CCO model in the future at some stage, if that's what the members, the shareholders decide.
Thank you. Next is, how is the board of the CCO going to be decided? How will we know that they have the know-how to be a part of the Water Services Board?
So this is a really critical element of the success of a CCO. So if I step it back a bit, the mayors of the 7 councils will be on the shareholder council. Those who are familiar with the Fonterra model, where there's the shareholders councillors, sort of a similar, same but different. So the mayors will be on the shareholder council. There'll be a shareholder agreement where the councils will agree what it is that the board will deliver. Of course, the point around having a governance board with specific skills is that their expertise will cover the things that a professional board requires, such as obviously financial acumen, strategic. It's the basic governance things of finance, strategy, and governance, having a good, clear understanding of those things, but having the skill base around that to deliver. It will be independent, obviously, of council. So mayors will not be on that board. CEs will not be on that board. So we'll be obviously seeking interest from those people that have got those skills to be a part of this operation. And that is all part of that constitution as well. This is the other thing that we will also be doing, is there's a shareholder agreement and a constitution. Those are the two really important documents that we will need to sign off to ensure the success of a CCO for that board to succeed.
Great, thanks so much. We have what looks like the last question here. So if anybody else would like to ask a question, please make sure to pop it in the Q&A box now. So this question is, will the district still face water restrictions under a CCO?
Great question. So at this point in time, yes, it will. The challenge we have, obviously, is delivering a resilient service to our communities. At the moment, we are not metered, so we use a lot of water. We probably lose a lot of water as well, with water leaks along the way in people's properties and in council lines. So our consent, we have a consent to take water, and we will when that consent comes up for renewal, we will have to have water meters in to get a consent to take water. So interesting question. Will depend on the weather patterns, obviously. We've obviously added resilience to the Morrinsville water supply. I think putting the bore in when we bought the land from the Lockerbie developer, that has created resilience for a growing town. We were coming under increasing pressures for our resource consent up at Te Mero. Those of you that are familiar with the dam up in the hills behind the town, the consent around that was getting quite challenging with the dry summers that we'd had pre-2023. So there will be times when we'll be required to conserve water. You know, we've just got to accept that. But again, the important thing is that we get enough that we need.
Thank you. No other questions have come in. So did you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think really in summary, the 7 councils that have come together, we have a lot of common ground. The synergies are very evident. We're rural councils with small rural service towns. Some of the councils actually provide water to their farms, some of the farms. We have some properties along our water lines that also supply farms, so we're providing water to them as well. We share boundaries. You know, those lines are arbitrary, and like our Te Aroha wastewater plant is closer to Pairoa as is the Te Mero plant to Cambridge. So, you know, like the distances between us are actually not significant. We do have those common boundaries. We're all beholden to the same regulatory framework, and therefore it makes it easier to work together. And when we approach things from a catchment with a catchment philosophy, that might bring opportunities as well. So obviously you've heard about economies of scale, resilience, efficiencies, buying power, influence. They are the key drivers to this Waikato Waters Done Well proposal. We are the largest group of councils in New Zealand to be going down this process. You'll be reading Waikato and Hamilton working together. There are councils throughout the country that are opting to stand alone. The biggest thing is, yes, there'll be a change in structure, but at the end of the day, the consumer should not see any difference. They will turn the tap on, they will flush the toilet. It will be the same. One day we may start billing initially as you know, with the water being separate, but it may move into the entity billing eventually. But the key point here is that you shouldn't notice a difference on a daily basis. The pipes will still get repaired locally, but the key thing is that we still retain ownership of the asset. I think that's probably the key point for me, and I'll hand over to Emily to wrap up. Thanks, Emily. And thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. Actually, that's really, really important for us to build this understanding. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Adrienne, and thank you, Manaia. That wraps up our session today. Please make sure that you head to mpdc.nz/let's talk. Have a read through if you have any more questions, and get your submissions in by 25 May. Cool. That's us for today. Thank you everyone for coming, and hope you have a great rest of your day.